What up, folks? What it do? Welcome to another episode of the Best Advice Ever podcast. Yeah, with your boy, Mike Goodwin, the bowtie comedian. Bowtie comedy. Shout out to all of you that are listening in to this episode. This episode is going to be a doozy, man. We're going to have a good time. We're going to have a great episode. And I know some of you are waiting for part 2 of the story from On the Road. I'm not going to make you wait any longer. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to go back to the other episode. Now, I must say this. I have 2 partners, 2 friends, college long friends. This maybe friendship spans 20 years. Are we at 20? Are we at 20 years? Yeah, easily 20. And they listen to the podcast. They are avid listeners. These 2 friends of mine. Let me tell you the difference between these friends. One friend called, and after he listened to the podcast, he called and said, "Hey man, what's the other part of the story? Hit me with the good stuff." Which I had no problem telling them the end of the story. I get a call from my other partner. He calls, "Hey man, I don't know if I should feel away because you hadn't called me to tell me the rest of the story." I'm like, "Hey, sir, you could have easily called and said, hey man, let me get that story. Let me get that inside scoop." He want me to call him. People constantly trying to validate your friendship. 20 years. 20 years. We're not friends. Are we still got conditions on our friendship? I thought we were closer friends than that. Man, give you a call and find out this information. But for those of you that did not call me directly to hear the rest of the story, here it is. Brief update for you. This may be your first podcast. I'm telling the story. I'm telling you the second half of the story. I'm in the TSA line, and it was just revealed to me that it's me and a woman in the line, and they saying that there's a firearm inside of one of the bags. Now, like I said on the previous podcast, my first thought was somebody planted a firearm in my bag. Clearly knowing there's no firearm in my bag. But I'm thinking they're trying to take a brother down, right? That's my immediate thought. And I'm looking at this woman, I'm making a judgment. She doesn't look like a gun-carrying, gun-toting, rootin', pistol-packing traveler. She doesn't I was just talking about her aerodynamic sneakers she had on. I did not in a million years think that this woman would have a firearm in her bag, but she did. She had a firearm in the bag, so they motioned both of us to the end of the conveyor belt. Pointed to the image, firearm, and the woman kind of was like, "That might be my bag." I'm like, "Nah, I ain't say this out loud." I was like, "No, it's your bag. Ain't no might be," right? So at this point, the woman that is the TSA agent kept saying, "You know, it's a federal building, right?" Now, I don't know all the ramifications of that, but it's not a good statement. That's not a good statement. If somebody were to motion you over to them and say, "Hey, man, you know this is a federal building, right? You probably did something you got no business doing, right?" So she said this 2 or 3 times, forcefully. "You know this is a federal building, right?" And it's early. It's a little too early for this level of intentionality that she had, this forcefulness. And it just got real. Like if you a TSA agent, work just got real. Like this is what you've been prepping for. You've been doing your trainings. Bam! Somebody in here with a whole firearm in the bag. A banana in the tailpipe. Now what's wild is for someone not to realize that they have a firearm in their bag. You can't even bring water through the TSA line. You cannot bring certain ounces of cologne. I know because they took my cologne one time. They took my fragrance, my smell good. I'm not a terrorist. I served my country. I was about to go to jail that day too. I was, I was about. You ever watch the basketball game and the referee tease up the person and they keep talking and they're about to get kicked out of the game? That was me. I had gotten the technical. They had told me, "Hey, calm down," and I'm like, "Hey, I ain't calming down, right?" Because number one, my memory is interesting. My memory is interesting. I gotta talk about this. I'm gonna talk about this in the what you not gonna do. What you not gonna do. Man, I just thought about that. And what you not gonna do. But my memory is interesting. My memory is a very foggy unless it relates to comedy shows. If it's a comedy show, I could pull it up. I could tell you what day, where we were at. I could tell you a lot. I liken it to the coach Steve Spurrier. I don't know if you ever paid any attention to Steve Spurrier, but I'm a South Carolina Gamecock fan. So he was our coach for a few years. Steve had a nice little run here in Columbia until he didn't. he hit us with the peace out in like 3 games into the season, right? But if you would, in the interviews, coach would talk and he would like go to a specific play in a game that might be in 1998. He was like, yeah, third quarter against ECU, I called this play. Like his memory was that crystal clear to the plays. And I'm similar to about that with my memory as relates to comedy shows, and I'll explain later today what that means. Now, we're in this line, and this woman they got her. You know, this is a federal building. Like I said, I was about to get put out. I was about to get arrested in the airport. And it was one of those airports, man. CAE isn't like I would think it's a regional airport. I don't know if it's metropolitan or international, but I think it's a place where you got a connections. Not a lot of direct flights, right? I don't know. I got a buddy of mine that's on the Columbia Airport board, so maybe he could break down like the size. I'm thinking of like airports like colleges, like you got small, medium, and large, right? I would think Columbia Airport is small to medium, if it's a school, it's probably got 5,000 students. Like it's not little, but it's not a big state school, right? But I'm at this little tiny small airport where they have nothing else to do but to go through the bags. And I had already gone through like 2 big airports and they didn't have any problem with my cologne. But I get to Podunk Airport and they want to take my cologne because they didn't have any of this type of cologne themselves, I think. They were like, they would never be able to get this cologne here. All right. So now the woman says to the woman that, this is a federal building. And she says this a few times. And the woman's kind of like, yeah, I guess so. I mean, that's what y'all did over COVID, right? Like, she didn't say that. But that was the vibe. Like, I don't know why you're telling me this. So now we're in the waiting. They shut down our line. And I'm looking at the clock. And I got about 20 minutes before they start boarding. And I'm kind of a little antsy. And I think the woman finally yeah, it's mine. Like, I think she said, that's my bag. They pull a bag. So I'm like, hey, man, what this got to do with me? Y'all can let me get on my merry way. Let me grab my bag and keep it moving, right? So I'm standing there kind of waiting for them to just kind of motion me on out of there, but they didn't. And we just kind of standing around waiting, and nobody has informed us of anything. We just waiting. And I know they made a call to like airport security or the police, but nobody has informed me of the next steps, right? So I walk back to the woman that is over the whole outfit, and I say, hey, can I get my bag? My bag is the one without a gun. Can I get that one? And the woman says, nope, Can't move, can't do anything. We're waiting for Leo. Okay. Leo who? Leo DiCaprio? Like, who is Leo? Like, what is Lee? I don't know who Leo is. And so I'm the type of person where I don't know things. I ask questions. I say, hey, man. I ain't say, hey, man, but I was like, okay. Who's Leo? And she says, the police officer. Now, I'm thinking, maybe like some of you thinking, the name of the police officer is Leo. It's not. No, Leo is an acronym for law enforcement. Yeah, law enforcement officer. Law enforcement officer. Leo. I didn't know this. I thought that the name of the police officer was Leo. And I'm like, where Leo at? Is Leo in the parking lot? Is Leo on a break? And they were like, it's going to take a while for Leo to get here. Law enforcement officer. So you learn something new. So the man comes. Now, the woman at this point, I think she's starting to see the gravity of the situation because she asked the TSA agent, how long will this take? She's like, yeah, I'm trying to make this flight. And the woman, the TSA agent is like, yeah, it's going to take a while. Like, it's going to be a minute. You probably going to miss that flight. And now the reality is starting to sink in on this woman that she may miss a flight because she leave her weapon in her car. Now, Leo walks up. I don't think that's his name, but Leo's there. So Leo comes secures the bag. Leo asks whose bag did this belong to. The woman steps up, and so then he comes to talk to her a little bit. Now, that's by this point she's summoned the tears. She's starting to sing the song of sadness. This flight is one of the few flights, and I'm trying to make it to a graduation. Leo ain't want to hear none of that, man. Leo said, grab your gear and come with me. So they whisked off into an undisclosed location. Now, I've done some more research because I talked to a friend of mine. I was like, hey, man, I was telling him the story. And he was like, yeah, she probably went to jail. And I said, what? He's like, yeah, that happened to his tour manager. He travels. That most times you have to check your weapon. You have to check it. You got to put it in a solid, like a hard case with a lock on it, and you check it in like you do a check bag. That's because you can travel with a firearm. You just can't have it on your person. But you because they put it in the belly of the plane and the bottom of the plane, right? But if you forget to check it and you have it in your bag, two things can happen. One, if you have a license to carry, then what you end up doing is having to check the weapon, and you may still make your flight. Now, there may be some issues, like they may kick you out of TSA. Can't do TSA anymore, so you're on TSA probation. You may miss your flight. Now, in some instances, if there's enough time, you can still make your flight, but you're not going to get arrested if you have your carry, the right to carry, or the carrying permit, whatever it's called. Now, if you don't, you go in jail. Yeah, they're going to arrest you. Then you got to pay all this money for fees. And then you got like a misdemeanor that you got to get off your record, like unlawful travel or weapon. Like there's some, like you get a charge. I don't think that lady made that graduation. I don't know if she had a license to carry or not. I don't know. I don't know anything else. We can make up a story, but that is the truth, Ruth. That's all I know. And so I will, if I travel with firearm, I'll make sure I will carry. I get it checked in as a carry-on. But there's no way in the world I'm just gonna have a firearm in my bag. I'll tell you, I don't even want to pass scissors in my bag to go talk to Leo. I don't want to talk to Leo. But that's the end of the story from being on the road. And I just was on the road this week. I was in Alpharetta, Georgia, at North Point Community Church, big church. Andy Stanley's church. My buddy Andrew Stanley, his son, recommended me to do the singles of event. They had a singles night, man. Shout out to single event coordinators. I'd have been married a long time. I don't remember no comedy show for the singles. I don't remember any type of gathering. I mean, there was a lot of singles in there too. They had them broken up in ages. They had 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds, 40, 50, 60. I think there might even been some 70-year-old singles up in there. We had a great time. I also understand I have nothing to offer singles in terms, like, I remember when I was a little younger in my marriage, for whatever reason, like when married men, there's this expectation that married men can advise single women on dating. And I don't know if that's valid. I can have an opinion, but I can't tell you how I operated in single. They run in a whole different pay. I never online dated. I've never dated online. I met my wife in college. Didn't have a profile. Didn't swipe left. Never swipe left. So I feel at loss. I feel a little lost. Now I had this weird experience recently because I feel away. I got a partner who's a widower. And he's out here in these dating streets. And from what I hear, what I can gather, it's not going well for my man. Now my man's a little, he's on about 48, maybe a little older than that. I'm maybe almost 50. And what always seems, because we connect pretty regularly, maybe every couple of months. But when we connect, it would seem like he's met somebody and they really like him, but he don't like them. Or he really likes her and they don't like him. Like, there's never lined up. And then there was a woman that he met, wasn't even online, met her at a dealership on a random, like, yo, let me say something to this beautiful woman. Ended up going out, spending time, really finding himself, a place in his heart for this woman. And the woman says, I think he had a child that was going off to college and she shut it down. She was like, I worked all this time to be able to do what I want to do. And I think if I stay in this relationship, I won't have the flexibility. I wouldn't be able to live the life I had imagined for myself, even though we're having a good time. I'm out of here. I think it broke my man's heart. So I'm always hearing like these weird type of scenarios as relates to dating, how bad the pool is. It's a cesspool, they say. But I just met this guy the other day, randomly, young guy, 25 years old. And he was going on, a very opinionated guy, got a lot of opinions. The guy was telling me how hard and difficult it was dating pool and all of this. But the young man also shared with me that he had done LSD as a teenager, as a middle school student, which I thought was a little strange. He was buying LSD at 13, right? So he tells me this LSD story and all that came along with it. Had to go to the hospital, all this. He was a pretty troubled guy. He had a lot of issues, you can imagine. If you're taking LSD at 13. When he got his GED, got out here in the world, started working. But he was talking about his dating scenario situation. He was saying how bad it was, how difficult it was. But then he did say he had a very, I don't know the term that he used, but he said he does have this interesting criteria for dating. He does have a thing that makes it a little more difficult for him to date. This man said he doesn't date anybody who's taken the vaccine. Sir, what? You've taken LSD, but you're not going to date a person to take the vaccine. And he was, people that are serious about the vaccine, they serious about the vaccine, man. And so he tried to, and they try to pull you into the conversation about my belief system, right? And he asked me, he said, what you feel about that vaccine? I said, hey, man, I served in the Army, bro. I don't know what's in my body. I don't know. Hey, the vaccine just one more thing. And this is the truth. When I went to basic training, we were in a single file line. We took off our BDU tops. We were just in our T-shirts. We rolled our T-shirts up over our shoulders and we stepped forward. It was somebody on both sides of us with like a little air gun that shot shots into you. You stepped up, boom. They hit you with two, one on each arm. You stepped up again. You did that 5 times. The U.S. military hit me with 10 things. And I'm not really certain what they were. And we all 78 of us that was in base trade, nobody was like, hey, man, can't put this in me. No, you are the property of the United States government. Step forward, please. Ploop, 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 ploop. They gave me a shot record, but I didn't get an orientation. Nobody told me, hey, man, this is what's floating around on the inside of you. So, hey, man, I'm not the guy I talk to about the vaccine. I feel to be a little bit of a hypocrite if I would be like, hey, man, I don't know what they put it. I didn't know what they put back in 1993. I got a whole cocktail up inside of me. So, ooh, that don't sound right. That just sound right. No, did it? Well, folks, the moment we've all been waiting for. I know I've been waiting for because that story went very long, went a little longer than anticipated. The best advice ever. That's the name of this podcast. Best advice ever. I mean, I hope y'all have been enjoying this. I've been enjoying trying to find the advice. And I go back and try to say, hey, man, have I done this advice before? So I'm really trying to give you some good stuff, some hot off the presses. This week's no different. I'm typically, when I share, I'm typically maybe something that I'm experiencing personally. So the best advice ever today is to simply use the platinum rule. Now, some of you may not know what the platinum rule is. It's a book called The Platinum Rule. The Platinum Rule is written by Tony, Alexandra, and Michael J. O'Connor. And I don't know if I said that last name correctly, but it's The Platinum Rule. Discover the 4 basic business personalities and how they can lead you to success. Now, I've read this book. I don't think I got all the way through it. Let's see, because my highlighters will let me know how far I got in this book. I read up to page 52. I think I got the gist of it. But it's a good book. And maybe I probably need to go back because I think I got through all the 4 personalities. And it's very impactful. There's 4 business personalities that are in this book: the thinker, the director, the relator, and what's the other one? The socializer. And I think it broke down to 4 for me. And I think I was like, yeah, I got it. I've got it. But the gist of this book is, I think, a great concept. And again, I think I will finish it at some point because I've referred to it a number of times. But the golden rule, everybody's familiar with the golden rule, hopefully. The golden rule is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, the platinum rule says that's not enough. The writers of this book said the golden rule is not enough. It's blind side. They say that it's not, there's a downside to the golden rule. If applied verbatim, it can backfire and actually cause personality conflicts. Why? Because following the golden rule literally, treating people the way you like to be treated, means dealing with others from your own perspective. It implies that we're all alike, that what I want and need is exactly what you want and need. But of course, we are not all alike. And treating others that way can mean turning off those who have different needs, desires, and hopes. So they recommend that you treat people with the platinum rule. And the platinum rule is to do unto others as they'd like done unto them. Treat people the way that they would like to be treated, not the way that you would like to be treated. I think that's a powerful concept. I think that's a powerful insight. I would encourage you to employ the platinum rule, or at least begin to think about it, consider it, because the golden rule used to be the standard. Do unto others as you would have them do unto. Well, everybody don't want that. Some people like it hot, other people like it cold. So if I'm like, hey man, turn the heat up, some people like, man, turn the heat down. To turn the heat down, people like, hey, I don't like that. But I'm like, hey man, I want the heat up. Turn it up. I'm treating you the way I would like to be treated. Well, they don't want to be treated how I want to be treated. They want to be treated the way that they want to be treated. So the best advice ever is to work hard, to employ the platinum rule. And again, I think this is great because it also breaks down these different personalities, and it shows you how to navigate, especially in a business setting, how to get the maximum production out of your teams, out of your clients, out of your direct reports. So I would encourage you to do some research on the platinum rule, and that's the best advice of the day, the best advice ever of the day. So we're gonna wrap this podcast up, man. We're doing well on time. I kind of made a run. I felt like I got down early in the podcast, but I made a little run. Kind of like I was hoping Minnesota was going to do the other night. They got down. They never really made that run. And Minnesota made Denver made a huge run at the end of the second quarter. Boy, they had a 5-point swing in about 8 seconds, maybe a little bit more than that, 12 seconds. And I feel like they stopped the clock. The clock should have kept running, but that's another conversation for another day. But I do have this segment that I love, I enjoy, the Mind of Mike. Let's get inside this mind. What am I talking about? One of the things I'm talking about is Mother's Day. Shout out to the moms. And I employed the platinum rule for Mother's Day because my wife, her Mother's Day request, I can't say the one request. She had one request that it's not rated G for TV, right? Or for podcasts. She had one request. Then she had another request for me to make her a fancy brunch, which is a little bit problematic. And it goes back to the platinum rule. Because for me, I just wanted to take her out. Want to take her out to a very fine restaurant. My wife wanted a fancy brunch. Now, what's problematic about that is I cook from inspiration. I'm the kind of person that I see something like I'm not regularly cooking. Like cooking takes a lot of time. I'm regularly warming up. I have my meals prepped for the week. You know, I have my meals. I already know. I make my breakfast in the morning. It's same breakfast. If I'm gonna eat that breakfast, or I might just either fast breakfast, or I might have some fruit. But I have my same breakfast I eat every morning when I eat breakfast. Then I have my 4 meals. The breakfast is 1 to 4, so I got 3 meals left. I got one at 12. I get one maybe around about, it could be anywhere from that, from like 4 to 6, and then I get a late one. I get one, try to get it in by 8, but it typically might slide out into about 8, 9, maybe sometimes 10, right? They all in there. They're in the refrigerator, ready to go. May do a protein shake throughout the course of the day, but I'm pretty locked in. So when I cook out of inspiration. I cook out of a level of like relaxation. I enjoy cooking. And my family enjoys my cooking, but I don't do it a lot. And I don't want to be pressured. I got a lot of pressure in my life. So when I cook, I want to just cook out of freestyle. I want to cook out of joy. I don't want to cook out of expectation. When I show up in the kitchen to cook, people are just like, oh my goodness, we're so happy he decided to cook. Like if you were at a comedy club and Dave Chappelle drop in. You in Denver. You live in Denver. Dave happened to be having a theater show that night. He drops in. Everybody's happy. No pressure, light and easy. He does his set. He keeps it moving. That's how I do with my cooking. I see some things I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. Or it just grabs me. My wife said she wanted my brunch. And I was like, that wasn't my plan. Because I did brunch last year. I did a nice did like a French toast. I did some lemon zest. But I saw something. I saw like a TikTok and it inspired me. It was like, yo, I think I could do that. And I did it. This year, she was like, I want the same. And I'm like, that's not how my situation worked. But it's Mother's Day. It was her day. So I did the platinum route. I platinumed. I made the brunch, even though in my heart of hearts, I wasn't inspired. I didn't really see anything that grabbed my attention. I was like, if this was going to make this woman happy, brunch it is, right? And that's what I did. I do have a question. When did the kids start taking over for Mother's Day? Because I got a mom. It's not my mama. This is the woman that made me a father, and I made her a mother, but that's not my mama. When these kids gonna step up and run the program, run the agenda, run the family Mother's Day operation? That's the question I have. What you're not gonna do is coast on my brunch skills and ability. That's what I told my kids. I told my kids next year, hey, I'm out. I'm giving y'all the Mother's Day reins. I don't know when does it change? Because I grew up in a house where I can't tell you a Mother's Day that my father facilitated. I can't tell you one. I remember me, because I'm the oldest. I remember me doing some little stuff, maybe throwing together a little grits and eggs, having a picture I drew, something I made at school. But I can't remember my dad saying, hey, man, we're going to get this thing together for Mom for Mother's Day. I can't tell you one. Can't tell you one example. So I'm from where I am, from where I've come from. It's been a long way. It's been a long, long way. The other thing, man, shout out to Craig Melvin. Craig Melvin, if you don't know Craig Melvin is a resident of South Carolina. Well, he's a native to South Carolina. I think he's a resident of New York. I don't know where Craig lives, but Craig Melvin is a newscaster, born and raised here in Columbia, South Carolina. He's an author of a book called I'm Proud. He's a book about fatherhood. Just had a book reading, signing in Columbia. And I went out. He had one that was at the Richland County Library. Every time I go to the library, I'm very impressed. And I feel like, man, I need to come back more often. But I'm probably not going to. But I love libraries. Big fan of the library. Big fan of Craig Melvin. Also, you may not notice, Craig Melvin had me on the Today Show last year to talk about the Big Dad Energy Tour. He gave me this cool feathered bow tie and gave me some press. What I do, man, is very valuable to talk about, getting on the public sector. That's one of the biggest, that's one of the goals I'm working on. Man, matter of fact, I was with this business coach today. She gave, because I was under the impression that we're in the know, like, and trust era, right? She said, nope, that was pre-COVID. The era that we live in now, see if I can find this. She said that was pre-COVID was the know, like, and trust. Now we live in the get seen, get heard, and get paid. Come on, somebody. Get seen, get heard, and get paid. That's the era we live in. We don't live in the know, like, and trust. So I'm like, oh, let me get it together. So Craig Melvin gave me some love, man, having me on the Today Show. So I went out to support old Craig in town. So I saw old Craig Melvin, and it was great. It was great to get outside of my house, because sometimes I can be a homebody because I be on the road so much. When I get home, I like to be home. But I went out and checked out old Craig. Shout out to Craig Melvin. And before I leave, I want to say this, and this may be an episode of podcast in the upcoming months. As you know, I'm a man of faith. My faith is very important to me. I'm a married man. I'm a family man, and it's very interesting. I was at the mall today. I was at the mall. I had this new watch. Shout out to this. This is a company, Tally and Twine. It's a Black-owned watch company. I went and jumped on it. Very, very nice watch, but it was a little too big, so I had to get some of the link out. So I went to the mall. In the mall, I'm the type of person, I like to walk around. I don't go to the mall much, but when I get over there, I like to go and see what the new comings and goings, what are the new booths and what are the new stores. So I do a little lap around the mall, and I see this guy. He looks at me and says something, but that's the legend right there, something like that. Now, what made me feel away is because that used to be my name on Facebook. I'm one of these people that was on Facebook at the beginning when it was just college folks, because I worked at a university and I had an alias. I was the Legend, because I'm a John Legend fan. I don't know if I'm big, but I'm a big fan of. I'm a fan of John Legend, so I put the Legend. And I don't think we needed. I had I was advising some student organizations, so I may have had like a symbol or something, wasn't so you didn't know who it was, but the Legend. So when the man said the Legend, I'm thinking like, this man know me from Facebook, but he was a gentleman that I had been. We were on a program together. Now he didn't have he was when we were on this program, he had on his suit. He didn't have on the suit today. He had on just regular old clothes, just regular old out at the mall chilling clothes. But he was an attorney. He was an attorney. He was talking to schools about social media and like some of the litigious issues around working at a public school, working in a school district. That was kind of the basis of his presentation. I remember him after he said, because he said something about legend. I was like, hey man, what's going on? So we shook hands, and he told me, yeah, we were on this program. I had to follow you, and I was like, oh man, I remember you, man. Yeah, we were in Clinton. We did a school, like a back to school. What do we call these things? When you have it's not, man. There's a name for it, because we would have them at like a convocation, but it wasn't a convocation. It's just like the welcome back to the faculty and staff for the school year kickoff celebration type thing. Well, I did a set. He talked about internet safety and those types of things. But he said something so funny. He was talking, and he was telling, I think he had sons that were maybe freshmen in college or seniors in high school, like, up in age, and they were home for COVID. They were not able to go. They were doing virtual school. And he talked about the term that happened around that time called on-site. And he said, I don't know if y'all familiar with this terminology, but it's basically, if now we're in this virtual setting, once we get back outside, when I see you, it's on site. Like, there's gonna be some furniture moving going on. Basically, we're gonna fight. Somebody say, when I see you, it's on site. I feel like that's what Kendrick Lamar and Drake on site, but I don't think they're gonna fight. But he made that comment, and he was like, man, you got a great memory. Because it's probably been 2 years now. Like, it's been a little while. And I said, no, man, I remember you made this joke, and yeah. And he said, man, you got a good memory. And it made me chuckle, because I'm like, yeah, around this. But it also led me to think, I'm so thankful I am who I say I am. Like, let's say I was in the mall, which I would never do this because I'm not an idiot. But let's say I'm in the mall, like flirting with women. Maybe I had a side chick, somebody with me. Or just kind of being disorderly, acting outside of my character. And there's a gentleman, like I didn't recognize him. Like he walked by, we were walking by each other, and he mentioned, hey, I know that guy. I know you, man. And and that happens to me regularly. I'm often places where people know me and I don't know them. And I'm so grateful, number one, that I run a clean operation. And I've not always run a clean operation, like not always run a clean. I always have not been a man of faith, right? I've been big and bad enough to do whatever I wanted to do. So imagine maybe if I wasn't married, or maybe if I was married, but I wasn't, a believer that operated with a spirit of righteousness, or not righteous, not like self-righteousness, but a spirit to be pleasing to God. Like, man, just the people, like I could just be out here doing all kind of flagrant activity, and you never know who's watching. So I never have to look over my shoulder. I'm so grateful that I'm one of the good guys, man. Am I flawed? Yeah, I have flaws. People, I'm not perfect. I'm not that guy. I'm not doing a bunch of stuff, and nobody caught me yet. Like when people are like, I'm not perfect. We all know that. We all know you're not perfect. But yeah, man, there's not many things. Maybe one thing, but I wouldn't be. There's nothing I'm doing if somebody found out. I'd be like, sorry guys. But there's some things that would be interesting to find out. It's just out on the public discourse, but nothing that at the end of the day moves the needle of like, oh my God, he's not who he said he was. Like I'm who I say I am, right? Some stuff just ain't none of your business now. But I'm grateful, man. It was just another reminder of like, hey man, your reputation. Be who you say you are. That's another episode for another day. I've gone too long, far too long today. Hope y'all have enjoyed this extended version of the Best Advice Ever podcast. See you next week. We're going to do it. Same bat channel, same bat place, same bat time. Y'all could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me. And you know what? I appreciate it. Until next time, y'all. Peace.